So we're going to look in this presentation at the olfactory ability of scent dogs as a possible welfare concern. The aim is to pose possible research questions and considerations for ethical and welfare debate of working detection dogs and dog breeding, so basically of scent dogs. I'm just going to show you the definitions, but I'm going to skip over them, so please feel free to pause there. Physiology of olfaction in dogs, so sniffing and modulation is two of the reasons why dogs smell so much better than we do. The relevance of the topic, the breed, so scent dog breeds, general aspects of olfaction and possibly enhanced olfaction, arguments why this could be a welfare concern, and an outlook. So in the future, what could or should or would possibly happen if this was indeed the case, that it was concerning for their welfare. So here are the definitions. Please feel free to pause. The physiology of olfaction in dogs. So I'm just going to show, as you can see at the top, I've kind of referenced Jenkins. Have a look there if you want to have a closer read. It's very interesting just to read how they smell and how they smell so much better than humans do. Just to point out though that the nasal anatomy, they have an olfactory recess as in the anatomy, so the nose, and that the sniffing, the airflow during sniffing, is one big factor that dogs can smell so much better, and it leads to the long exposure of odours, the avoidance of odour habituation, and that dogs can localise odours really well. So the air is inhaled in the middle, so inhaled from the front and exhaled at the sides during sniffing. Then the modulation, so how the signal is kind of what's done with the signal, that's how we could say, and it's due to the brain anatomy that the modulation of the olfactory signal is just so enhanced in scent dogs, in dogs in general and also in scent dogs. So the signal is amplified and they have an hemispheric specialization, so lateralization. Most senses will be not ipsilateral as the olfactory sense is. So if we smell with our right nostril, dogs smell with their right nostril, then the signal goes mainly to the right side of the brain and left to the left side. So, and if we have a look at the olfactory bulb in the dog, if we have a look at the diagram, to show you, then we see that it is a lot bigger relative to the general size of the brain compared to in the human brain. And it is thought, so Siniscalchi suggests that at first, in dogs, at first, if it's a novel smell, if they smell something new, new smell, scent comes to them, then they use their right nostril. And then if it stays maybe a more negative smell, maybe something that smells like someone's anxious and that's kind of the scent of it, or then it stays in the right side and it goes to the right part of the brain. Whereas if it's a familiar smell, maybe somebody that they know, then they initially start to sniff with the right side, with the right nostril, and then they quickly move over and switch to the left nostril and it goes to the left side of the brain. And Siniscalchi suggests that using this right nostril first could indicate a state of stress, so kind of an increased arousal. So the relevance of the topic. So we know that odours can cause negative affective states in humans, which is why we have legislation and research is going on in this area, and we recognise negative affective states in animals. So why shouldn't odours cause negative affective states in animals? And especially because olfaction is possibly the main sense in the dogs. So they smell awfully well. And despite this, there's not much research in the area of olfaction in dogs, despite this being one of the main senses. So a lot of authors think that this is probably due to the fact that it is not one of the main senses in humans. So when we research, then we might not look at this area in dogs. And then the other side is breeding. Breeding is ethically concerning, especially if it's so sometimes it can be anyway, and especially if traits are bred which harm animals either deliberately so that we want to have something, maybe phenotypically big eyes, bulging eyes, or if it's just kind of a side effect, like kind of a gene defect that we breed that's just connected to the traits that we want to. And there are, so I just very roughly estimated the number of scent dogs in the UK as 57,375 scent dogs. So it's a very rough estimate. So and I just got my calculation down there. So there are approximately 9 million dogs in the UK according to the Kennel Club. There are some other organizations that have different numbers, but we're just going to stick with this. And 75% are supposedly pedigree dogs, i.e., 6.75 million pedigree dogs in the UK, and of which 0.85% are scent hounds. At least if we have a look at the animals, the scent hounds that were registered newly to the Kennel Club in 2022. So we just have just a brief look maybe at the calculation in a bit more detail. They had 30,092 newly registered hounds in 2022. So, and if we then have a look though, which of them were actually scent hounds, because hounds can be sight hounds or scent hounds, and we are focusing here on scent hounds. So sight hounds would be, for example, greyhounds, so they're very fast, but we want to have a look at the scent hounds, the ones that are really, really, really good at smelling and bred for their sense of smell. So as the Kennel Club does not divide their hounds into scent hounds and sight hounds, I did this according to the FCI differentiation and had a look of their list, which of them are actually scent hounds and which are sight hounds. And I came to the conclusion that there were approximately 2,355 newly registered scent hounds in 2022, which would be 0.85%. So if we have a look at the pedigree dogs, and then we come to the conclusion that there might be a very rough estimate of 57,375 dogs. So scent hounds. So that is actually a lot of dogs. And to show you the breeds, so as I said, I had to look at the FCI for this. And we can have a look. I had a look at the breed watch categories. So the breed watch is something that the Kennel Club does. It's like a program, and they have a look at all the breeds, and they then say whether they think that these breeds need to be monitored regarding to animal welfare concerns, maybe health concerns. And so you can see in brackets what they would the breed watch category that they have given. I have put the dogs here. They are in a decreasing order in the numbers newly registered. So there were 1,581 beagles newly registered in 2022, 426 basset hounds, and the rest on the list were under 100 newly registered dogs, but at least one. So the ones, if there wasn't any dog registered of that breed, then I didn't add it to the list here. And as you can see, most of them are not concerning to the Kennel Club at the moment. So the Basset Hound has got category 2, and the Bloodhound is category 3. But if we have a look at the concerns mentioned, they do not mention olfaction or the olfactory abilities as concerning at present. And just to show some more general aspects before we have a look at why I do think that it could be concerning is, for one thing, olfaction is enhanced or can be enhanced by genetics, by breed, by individual, and training. So it can also cause affective states, positive or negative, so we can also use it as enrichment, but it can also be negative for the animals. And it can depend on the concentration. So, for example, Malnick et al. Found that indole is unpleasant when concentrated, but it smells floral when it is just a low concentration in humans. So why not in animals as well? Why not in dogs? So there's no reason why this should not be the case, I think. And just to pinpoint that odovalence is an individual perception, the same as stress. So when we perceive something as being stressful, that can also differ from individual to individual. And if this was a welfare concern, or I think it should be a welfare concern, then it would be or mean that scent hounds are possibly more susceptible to feeling these negative affective states through re-exposure, for example. So we have a very pronounced olfactory memory in scent hounds due to the strong modulation in the brain and the connection to the limbic system there. Meaning that if there are things that if the animals have had negative experiences in the past, they often connect it with the smell as well. And if they smell the same smell later on, they might feel negative affective states. Subclinical stress, according to Moberg, it could increase the risk of the animals experiencing distress. So if other subclinical stresses come together and it adds up, or if the subclinical stress comes together with other stress, then it can cause distress or can cause worse distress in the animals. Overstimulation could be a possible consequence, just through too strongly perceived smells. This is in connection with them maybe perceiving odors at a low concentration as unpleasant, possibly lower than non-scent dogs because they are just so much more sensitive to them, and their amplification of odors is just even higher than in other dogs. But just to say, it could also be an issue depending on it for most dogs. Just depends on the odors really. Possibly there's some somatic symptoms as in humans. So Steinheider says that gastric symptoms like nausea, vomiting, disgust, and loss of appetite, as well as sleep disorders and general health-related symptoms, can be somatic symptoms in humans. So it will be interesting to maybe think about this in dogs as well. Communication is a big factor of olfaction, and it could be altered possibly, I don't know, or enhanced. We just have to look into this and think about this and think about whether this could have negative effects on an individual animal's welfare. So there's immediate or delayed communication. So immediate would be if an animal has an odor about it, so the own smell, or maybe a different dog smells is anxious and the dog can smell that, or delayed, for example, urine marking. And communication with conspecifics, so with other dogs, or with heterospecifics, for example, humans. So further research is definitely needed in this area. And just a general research question, I just kind of showed that it would have to be narrowed down, of course, a lot further in the research, just like a very broad research question. And owners, dog owners, but also breeders and dog trainers should be aware of the fact of the olfaction of dogs in everyday life, especially in scent hounds. Maybe they should consider this regarding the breed choice and um, location choice as well, because possibly there are less odours which could be unpleasant in rural non-industrial areas. And as an outlook, so if this was supported by more research, then welfareists should have a look at how this could improve, how the everyday life of these dogs could be improved. Ethicists should debate the usage of detection dogs and breeding of scent hounds. Breeding associations could adapt the breed standards, and politicians could incorporate this knowledge in odor emissions regulations and possibly regulations on breeding as well. So thank you very much. I'm just going to skip through the references. Again, feel free to pause if you'd like to have a closer look. Thank you very much.